So we welcome you tonight to Native Organizers Alliance webinar on how we are building community in a time of pandemic, how we're staying together while separated. My name is Judith LeBlanc. I am a member of the Caddo Tribe of Oklahoma and the director of the Native Organizers Alliance. I walk with a high heel on one foot and a moccasin on the other. And we have our other Native Organizers Alliance team on the call. We have Shelley Means, who's over in the Seattle area. Robert Chinate, who's also from a tribe from Oklahoma, like I, who's down in Ohio. And then we have Sandra Anderson, who's down in Albuquerque. I would like to ask Whitney Rencountre, I'm saying your name wrong, Whitney, but I would like to call on you to open us with a few words of encouragement and prayer.
Oha. Hamitaku pi ya chante waste nape chuzapo. Hello, friends and relatives. I greet you all with a heartfelt handshake. My name is Whitney Rencountre II. I'm from the Hunkpati Dakota Yate Crow Creek Sioux tribe, currently living in the Black Hills, the Chesapa Makoche, the birthplace of our people, the Ocheti Shakoi. And I'm also a co-founder of the Social Distance PowWow. And it's an honor and a privilege to be on here with each and every one of you on this evening. And as I start my prayer today, I want to say send a special prayer out to our relatives amongst the Diné Nation who are dealing with a lot of deaths and sicknesses, as well as any other of our indigenous peoples across the world that are dealing with this pandemic, and all of our friends and our allies and all of those of all colors that are experiencing a difficult time during this pandemic. And I'm going to open with the prayer song, friends and relatives, so you can offer your prayer in your own language, in your own way. Put your tobacco out, or your azalea, your sweetgrass, your sage, your cedar, all of the things that you utilize to protect yourself and to prevent sickness. So I'm going to start with the prayer song at this time and offer your prayer in your own way. Wakataka chekia yo yo hey hey yo hey tuka shelana mahu hey wakataka chekia yo hey Chekia yo, ya yo, hey, hey yo, hey. Toka shela namahu, wauko toko chekia yo, hey. Wakataka chekia yo, ya yo, hey, hey yo, hey. Toka shena namahu, wakataka chekia yo, hey. Chekia yo, ya yo, hey, hey yo, hey. Toka shena namahu, wakatoko chekia yo, hey, oin. Atikashate wakatakawi. Ask that you bring us all together this beautiful day and help us to come up with the solutions and the energy that is needed to help our people to continue to grow and prosper Ask that you give everyone the tools that they need and the work that they do, and keep them grounded, keep them balanced, and protect them from any harm, and continue to help us as we navigate through this lifetime. Give us the tools that we need to help our people and our friends and our relatives. Ask that you bless everybody on here and their families with good health and protection. Amitakuye Oyasi.
Thank you. So we are glad that you will spend an hour with us sharing, telling some stories, sharing some stories. We, the Native Organizers Alliance is a national Native organizing and training network. We were founded over 10 years ago in the course of mobilizing Native grassroots support for Obamacare. We are beginning, this is the first one. There may be some technical glitches because it's a steep learning curve. But this is the first of a series of webinars to share stories from Indian country about what we are doing, what we are working on, and how we are organizing at a time of pandemic. And although the coronavirus has interrupted our lives politically, economically, socially, and culturally, we will continue to do the work that our communities require in order to build our power to make transformational change. The resilience that exists in all of our traditional cultures and amongst our peoples is well known. And the truth is, this is not the first nor the last calamity or pandemic that we will face. But the thing that gives us resilience is to know that our descendants are going to look back at this moment. They're going to look back to see what we did in order to ensure that we continued ceremony, that we continued healing, and that we continued to organize for the needs of our people and for the achievement of tribal sovereignty in the long run. And so when we talk in indigenous framework of the present, we're talking about how we walk in the present, and that in this present moment, we are bringing together the past, our ancestors, and the future, our descendants. And so how we walk and what we do together, especially in a time of such crisis, is an important continuation of the path of our ancestors and a continuity of our wide and beautiful cultures across Turtle Island. So we tonight will share some stories about how, well, we call it in New York City, the coronavirus, how the Rona has interrupted our culture and our community building, but also how it is that our communities have responded to it. And so we have a fabulous panel that will talk from their view from different corners of Turtle Island. So I'd like to introduce our panel. What we're going to do is to ask each a few questions. Then we will break into small group discussions of five in each group in order to share some stories amongst everyone who's on the call. And then we will return for a few questions. We have a very large crowd assembled online, so we'll only have time for a few questions. So if you have questions after the breakup, please load it up, or during the course of the panel, load it up into chat, and we'll try to group them in areas and try to respond to a number of them. And so I would like to introduce our panelists. We have Robyn Jackson, Diné, and she is the Climate and Energy Outreach Coordinator for the Navajo Environmental Justice Organization, Diné Citizens Against Ruining Our Environment, or Diné Care. We also have Elizabeth Day, who's Anishinaabe, who is the Community Engagement Projects Manager for the Native American Community Development Institute in Minneapolis. Robyn is working on the Navajo Nation. Elizabeth is working in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And then we have Whitney Rencountre, who is the co-founder of the Social Distance PowWow, and he is working virtually. He's working on in our online community, and has given us a lot of good moments in these last few weeks with the virtual powwows. So for the first question that I would like to ask our panel, I think I'll start with Robyn. Could you describe your community, the community that you're working in on the Navajo Reservation, and how the coronavirus is impacting on your community?
So yeah, to everyone, my name is Robyn Jackson. As Judith said, I work with the Navajo Environmental Justice Organization, Diné. They've been around 30 years now. And thank you very much for the prayer at the beginning as well, Whitney. I would say that the organization I work for, we are focused on the communities based on the Navajo Reservation, which covers the northeastern part of Arizona into New Mexico and Utah. And it's over 27,000 miles. It is pretty big and widespread rural area, little infrastructure. And we are located, it's the desert Southwest. So we have our own particular environment, climate here, where there's really not a lot of water. And our work has been to do a lot of public education, but also trying to protect our lands from a lot of harmful extractive energies that have come about over the years. Some of these harmful, destructive facilities, like different fossil fuel companies, we've been able to prevent, and mostly it's about working with our community so that they have a voice to speak out on behalf of themselves and to advocate for what they want in their communities. And right now with COVID-19, like a number of other Native communities, the Diné Navajo are being hit very hard. It's you just hear from a lot of people in different communities, relatives, and a lot of the people who are facing just a number of positive cases. Right now, we're close to 1,000 confirmed cases and close to 60 deaths. So it's very alarming. The rate is, has been increasing, and it's very much on our mind. And our organization, although we are primarily environment-based, this issue has been so pressing that we're doing our part, whatever we can, to try and address COVID-19, some kind of response that can be supportive to our community. So in what ways we can, we've been doing a number of different things. Like some of our organization members have been involved in the different volunteer efforts that are going on now with food donation delivery. I want to mention 3 prominent Navajo grassroots groups that are fundraising. And like I said, Navajo is spread out and pretty big. So it's really good that there's more than one place to donate, to organize and network with. So there's more of a northern group called the Northern Diné COVID-19 group. There's the Far East, located on more the eastern side of the reservation, Far East COVID-19 Relief Group. And then there's the Navajo Hopi COVID-19 Relief Group, which is more Western Central based. And so they are also going into Hopi. And Hopi is also within the Navajo Nation. So they're very much affected by this. And some of our people are working with them as well. And I also want to mention another relief group out there. So Diné, through our networks with some of the other environmental groups, ally groups we work with, they've also helped establish this donation site. There's the IEEFA, IEEFA, that has put up a Navajo and Hopi community assistance site, and it's actually on our Diné Facebook page if you look us up. but they are taking donations and they've connected with a distillery in New Mexico to produce hand sanitizers that they're donating to some of the Navajo communities. And also they are collecting funds to distribute some isolation tents to some of the hospitals on the reservation. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that really you have a lot of grassroots groups. I think that, you know, Navajo, we are pretty big and we can't, I don't think it's realistic to just rely on the Navajo Nation government. People also have to do their part. And so our communities, our grassroots network have been coming together. And I think that one of the good things is trying to pool resources together, support one another where we can, different efforts. And I definitely see that as a good thing, that's been a way of strengthening community, a way of working together in this time of crisis. And sorry.
So Robyn, you're almost segueing into our second question. Good one. So maybe we'll toss it to Elizabeth and then we will return to talk and give some more examples of how rebuilding the community building is underway and why it's important. So Elizabeth, would you like to say a little bit about how the coronavirus is impacting on the Native community in the Twin Cities?
Sure. Hi. Bonjour, Nindinaway Maginituk, Elizabeth Day, Nindishnakaz, Wabajashin and Dodame, Gazagasquaja Mekang Nujaba, Idashka Kabikang and Da Nungum, and Niminwain Dan Ayaya Nungum. Hi, my name's Elizabeth Day. I'm from the Martin clan. I'm a citizen of the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe, and I live in Minneapolis. And I'm very happy and honored to be here today, so thank you. So I work at the Native American Community Development Institute. NACD is what it's known by in the community, because that's a long one. So what we do, we're an asset-based intermediary, a connector in the community. We help bring organizations and community together and use each other's resources in a good way. We do this to support a future that we have envisioned for ourselves in the community. One of the ways that we had collected this vision was about 10 years ago. We held a series of community input sessions for over a year and helped create what we thought that the American Indian Cultural Corridor in Minneapolis along Franklin Avenue would look like if it was a community created by us for us. Being an urban Indian, we are a nation of many nations. So we're our own little tribe here in Minneapolis and St. Paul area, and it feels great to be a part of. So yeah, our work revolves around capacity building in the American Indian Cultural Corridor, both organizationally and individually. Our work has been affected because we really are community engagement based, person to person, community event things. So I'm really excited that Whitney's on the line here so we can talk about the social distancing powwow. That's something that's been on our radar, and we're looking to see how else we can help utilize that within our own programming. We went from some of my work that have really two tracks of work, and that is civic engagement, voter mobilization, voter education. And then also we have food access, where we run a farmers market in the cities and help with community gardens, and also the Indigenous Food Network, which is we're trying to create our own native food hub. So not being able to farm in the city more than 3 people deep has been another challenge that we've seen, trying to navigate and figure out how we can, how to bring our produce back to the people, and really just collaborating and figuring out where our partners are and how we can work together to continue to service the Minneapolis community. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you. So Whitney, Elizabeth talked about the community, and we have tribal nations, communities that are built where we govern and we live on the land together. And then we have chosen tribal communities in urban areas for a long, long time. And it's created a chosen tribal community, urban Indian culture. And one of the outgrowths has been the powerful PowWow culture that has developed amongst all of our peoples. So it's great pleasure to hear a little bit about what you and your co-founders, why it was that you decided to begin this social distancing PowWow initiative online.
Sure, thank you. You know, Dan Simon, Stephanie Hebert, and myself, when we founded the social distance PowWow, we were getting ready, pretty much like every other person from the PowWow world, the circuit of PowWows that usually kicks off in December, or excuse me, in March. Denver March PowWow is usually the kind of kickoff time for vendors, for people to kind of start hitting the PowWow trail, so to speak. And there's a lot of college PowWows. You have the Gathering of Nations, and then you have the summer circuit of our PowWow celebrations, and that takes you all the way through to the fall time, you know. And so we just kind of we were getting ready, and as an MC myself, a PowWow MC, as a singer, I was getting ready to go to several PowWows to MC. University of South Dakota, Black Hills State University, University of Denver, and then some summer PowWows. You know, so I was planning and getting ready to go, and then Dan Simons, who is the other co-founder, one of the other co-founders, is a vendor. He has wampum ware, and he sets up his vendors, his vendor crafts and arts and so on and so forth at a lot of celebrations. So this really hit us, you know, pretty tough. And he asked me to come on when he was thinking about starting this page. And he asked if I would be willing to come on, because we met at Black Hills PowWow where I MC. And he comes to the PowWow and he loves it. And originally I was like, I don't know. I was like, how are we going to do a virtual PowWow? In order to have a PowWow, everybody has to come together. You have to be with people in order to have a grand entry, in order to sing songs and dance and collaborate. I didn't think it would be possible. And we were just talking a little while. And then I said, you know what? He kept kind of bugging me. You know, he wouldn't stop. And he didn't want to just sit back and, you know, deal with the pandemic. He wanted to do something about it. So I figured he got serious. So I was like, you know what? Give me a call. So he called me and we talked about it, and I heard it in his voice that he was saddened, that he put so much energy and efforts into his art, into preparing for the PowWow season. And when the rug was swept under him, he was left with all this great artwork and not really much to do about it. And so myself as the MC, having lost all my MC gigs and, you know, the love of singing in PowWow, I grew up around it all my life. I heard it in his voice, and that I think that energy from his voice transferred to my spirit as a singer, as a PowWow. And I know these songs and these dances, when you take the good parts of our songs and our dances, it's the heartbeat of our people. It's the essence. Although we didn't PowWow long ago before the westward expansion, we still sang, we still had songs and dances to celebrate the harvests, to celebrate the buffalo hunts, the fish. You know, all of these things are the basis of who we are. And I think that's why we love the Wachipi. That's why we love the PowWow circle so much, is because it's instilled in us and it just makes us feel good. So that's where the PowWow came from. And it just took off like wildfire. And we're trying our best to navigate through any challenges that come through this place. But the bottom line is we operate it with prayer. We operate it because the people depend on it for inspiration. And the videos and the art and the language and the culture that's coming through the dances, songs, it's beautiful. And we're very, very privileged to be a part of something that is helping the people through this time.
Thank you so much, Whitney, because cultural continuity is part of the coronavirus response. It's as important to meet the needs of health and our bodies, but our spirits as well. And so many in the chat and online have appreciated this initiative. So let's move on to the next question, Robyn. What specifically is Diné Care doing to respond to the pandemic and working with others? And how are you trying to strengthen culture and community building in the midst of the pandemic?
So doing the best we can in whatever way possible. And specifically for the members of our organization, we do have members who have connected in with some of the relief efforts of food deliveries, calling people, and then also talking with people, networking with people, ally groups, letting them know about these donation sites, helping fundraise on our own to the, where we can, however we can, whatever donation amount. And then working, one of the specific things too is our board member, her name's Adela Begay, she's also a former registered nurse. So she took it upon herself to record a public service announcement in our language to explain COVID-19, to explain, give a really descriptive account of the different public health precautions that people should take at this time, explaining washing your hands for 20 seconds, why that's important, how to go about doing that, explaining social isolation, what that means, why it's important. And in our languages, a lot of the time, it takes a little bit longer. So that PSA comes out to 11 minutes, but it's really critical information that gives a good explanation and rationale for why people need to follow these different public health precautions at this time. And we've heard from a number of our people that that PSA is really good. So, our board president recorded that, and then the rest of us just kind of helped support with some of the technical part and the fundraising part and sharing that out. And now fortunately, with groups like the Navajo COVID-19, and then also our own fundraiser, we're able to run that on the radio 3 times a day for the next few weeks. And I guess, well, what I should say is that Navajo Nation, around 35% are without electricity, around 40% without running water. So there's not a lot of infrastructure, not really a lot of internet capability, but people do oftentimes have radios. And so our local radio stations, that's really one really good way to get information out to people. So that PSA is specifically something that I think is one of our big contributions from our organization. And so we are going to work on some future PSAs that can help the public get the education they need at this time, and a way of keeping us connected and just furthering communication.
Thank you, Robyn. I think it's so important that when we're thinking about this crisis as community organizers and leaders, there are some basic traditional principles that guide us. Number one, to educate our people. To educate our people and to do it in a way that is best, that the message will be received, and to really think about the way. Of course, we're not going to stand outside and hand out leaflets. So the radio, choosing the radio. And secondly, another really important way of working and living, of supporting the initiatives of others, wholeheartedly supporting when people are stepping up, especially in a crisis, to realize that that reciprocity, the person stepping up is supported by those around them. And those are important values in all of our communities that need to be lifted up at a time of great duress. So Elizabeth, could you tell us a bit about, I know it's a complicated time in the cities all over Indian country, because we're also not only in the midst of the pandemic, but we're also in the midst of the census work. And it's complicated. It's complicated. tell us what some of your experiences and the way that you've begun to work due to the pandemic on the census.
Yeah, when we switched to working from home, everything really changed and switched on a dime, like everybody's work. Originally, all our census work had actually started in November. We were going to all of the powwows in the cities, all of the local community events where we're doing direct one-to-one contacts with people and having people pledge to vote, register to vote, and also pledge to do the census at that time. Thankfully, we were forward thinking after hard lessons learned last year, and we started collecting people's information on pledges and created our own database of people who said that they would pledge to do the census. So we have almost 500 people in our database now that we collected since November. And actually we followed your advice and we started the old phone tree method.
20th century. It's
right?
a wonderful time to use 20th century means of organizing.
Yeah. So we're learning from our past organizers on ways to do organizing and outreach. Also, I'm so fortunate to have a wonderful team of people to work with, specifically Jolene Jones, who is our I don't know her exact, I don't know, we were really giving her one, but she's our community engagement, make voting a tradition worker. And she is a brilliant woman, and she actually started a raffle on Facebook. And she said, if you complete your census and she's like, don't give me any of your personal information, I don't need that, but just send me some kind of proof that you did your census and I'll put you in a raffle. So she makes beautiful earrings. She's also been gathering other raffle prizes, and about once a week she will hold, she'll have her grandbabies help, and she has her whiteboard on Facebook and the names on it, and then her helpers go in and draw the numbers for whatever raffle item that week, whether it's a roll of toilet paper or some beautiful earrings or anything in between, just more incentive. We also have a great partner with the city of Minneapolis and Christine McDonald, and she's just been a wonderful help as the city's liaison, the American Indian liaison for the city of Minneapolis. And David Knoyer, he's a media specialist, and he and Christine and I were on a phone call a week ago, and we were starting to think about more radical ways that we can reach our community. So Minnesota was the first state to turn dark blue in the country. We had 61% of self-response rate, super high. In between the top counties, Minnesota and Wisconsin had the top counties for self-response rate. So great, right? But in Minneapolis, in our census tract that we are targeting in the Native community, we're still at 39% self-response rate. So, still having those one-to-one conversations is really important. And I think that David Knoyer had a great suggestion that maybe we come a little more aggressive with our messaging and saying, not doing your census is not an act of resistance. This is what they want us to do. They want us to not be counted. That's not being resistant. So we're, continuing to disappear. So maybe we start going out with that message. So we're still in flux. We're still figuring it all out. What that message ends up being, probably the next week or two, we'll come out with something. So I saw our Facebook in the chat for Native American Community Development Institute, and so hopefully we'll have some messaging on there pretty soon.
So I want to, all of the participants in the webinar, I hope you're all watching the chat, because a lot of information is being added into the chat by Sandra Anderson, so that you'll know how to get in contact with the groups that are currently speaking on the panel. So Whitney, tell us what you've learned from the people that have reached out to you through the social distancing powwow. What have you learned about organizing?
Yeah, we've learned many lessons, and one thing that we've learned is that our people have this innate ability to be resilient, to adjust. It's within us when we feel the sense that something is taken away, that we have this within us to rise above it. We have it within ourselves through our connection and through overcoming so much historically, what our ancestors went through, and the wisdom that our ancestors have passed on to us that's in our DNA. Yes, the trauma has caused us to adjust and make, in some cases it has had led to addictions. It has led to some violence in our communities and so on and so forth. But I think the social distance powwow is the scratching the surface of when our ancestors said that the prophecy of the seventh generation, which is happening now, our generation, that we are going to come out of what happened to our people during the boarding school experiences, during the Sell or Starve Act, during the Trail of Tears, during the Long Walk, during the Wounded Knee Massacre, Dakota 38+2, all of these things that have happened to our people across the nation. We are coming to a time and a place now that our youth now have not had to experience the no Indians allowed, no Indians are dogs allowed on our storefronts. They did not have to experience these things firsthand. So they come at it with a fearlessness, a courage to go to college, to become the next leaders, to do the things that our grandmothers and our grandfathers sometimes still are in fear that they will get punished for speaking our language. And so they're very careful in what they do. But our generation and the children below us and that are going to rise above and it's like they have this fearlessness. And so on the social distance powwow, you see that when people post their videos. Early on when we started this social distance powwow, there was a young man that came on with his hand drum on a live on our page, and he said he saw all these people dancing in their living room, singing in their front yard, going out to the field. He said he was feeling suicidal. But when he saw these videos and he saw everybody kind of just freely giving these songs and these dances with no competition, it was just offering them for the frontline people, for the people that are helping other people. He said it inspired him. And we go on and on and on for stories from all over Indian country, across the world, all kinds of, even folks over from New Zealand that wanted to come on and do the haka dance. Mm-hmm. It's just connecting people across the world because we're all going through this together. Mm-hmm. And so to see a lot of these values and virtues and strengths and things that we've developed through the years starting to transpire into the social distance powwow, which is approaching 200,000 people in a little over a month, this is something we're all contributing to. This isn't something that my fellow co-founders and I are responsible for. This is something that is being led by the community because they're given a platform. And the most important thing that we're always taught is you always have to put prayer first. You have to let Creator guide what you do. And even through some of the mistakes that we made in guiding this process, we always come back to being careful, to asking our elders to excuse us, to keeping the mission of this social distance powwow the same, which is to provide medicine to the people and to keep them strong during this pandemic. And then after this pandemic is over and maybe we start to readjust to a new normal, that this platform can be used by Indigenous artists, entrepreneurs, singers. It can inspire the elders who can no longer attend powwows. it can help the youth to have a platform to share with the world their talents. So we're very blessed to have this opportunity, and we're very grateful for everybody that contributes to the social distance powwow.
Thank you, Whitney. So now we're going to break down into small groups of 5. All of you will be automatically moved into a breakout room with 4 other people. So it'll be 5 per breakout. And it would be great if you could share a quick story of something, how your community has responded to the coronavirus. What has made you proud? What have you seen in your communities that made you proud of how people are responding to this terrible crisis? So you will see a little message on your screen that says join a breakout room. You can just click on it and you will join a breakout with 4 other people. And we'll let you know when the 7 minutes are over. So I got knocked off the call. I'll never be able to live this down. I hope everybody enjoyed their breakout calls. We're about to wind down and come to the end of our call, but we'd love to give the panelists one more round. I don't know if you all were able to look at the chat and some of the questions, but let's start at least, maybe we'll start with Whitney. What's one thing you would like to see happen post-pandemic based on the experiences that you've had with the social distance powwow? What do you think will happen on post-pandemic? Maybe Whitney's not back.
I'm back. Sorry, I
great.
just got back from my group, my assigned group. We went all the way up to the last second, so I might have missed your question.
So what's the takeaway from this experience thus far? What do you think is going to be in the future? You said a little bit about the fact that you'd like to see your platform be a vehicle for artists and to continue sharing. But do you see something bigger in Indian country that's going to happen as a result of these experiences?
I think so. You know, as an educator myself, working with as a former Indian studies teacher myself, and running a nonprofit youth organization in Rapid City, South Dakota for the Indigenous students that live here. You know, it breaks my heart that our students, even non-native students, never really get the true experience and to learn about Indigenous peoples. And I'm not just talking about the facts of what happened historically, but we have such a beautiful culture. And I think the social distance powwow is a prime example of all the different cultures that exist beyond the powwow world, you know, in terms of the arts and the beautiful dances. And, you know, we've had people entering singing contests that have never entered singing contests, singing the smoke dance songs or the Eastern style songs or songs from Alaska, you know, our songs from all over the nation. And, you know, I just think that after this pandemic passes, you know, we're going to be in a place that we can continue this work, this platform, where a lot of people, just like Standing Rock, after Standing Rock is over in Manukai, over in Hawaii, and all these movements, you know, afterwards it leaves a lasting impact on you. But I think it seems like after each movement we learn even more and more. And the thing about social distance powwow is we're up against the enemy, against all of us. We have to respect this enemy, this COVID, and we have to have respect for it, but we don't have to fear it. We just have to take precautions and be alert, pay attention, take care of our families. And I think this social distance powwow platform is going to give us a way to educate people, and we don't have to rely solely on the educational system in America. And it's showing us that if we do these things on our own, we have capabilities of reaching a lot of people through platforms such as the social distance powwow. So we're excited with what the future holds.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, what do you think the future holds when it comes to food sovereignty? Because I know that you all are doing a lot of work, and you give us an example from Minneapolis that's happening that is encouraging for future plans around future sovereignty, around food sovereignty.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. Actually, this is something that I was just saying what I was so proud of in our breakout group. I sit on the leadership committee for the Markets of Minneapolis, and what that is about 25 farmers markets that take place in Minneapolis. And during one of our breakout calls, someone was very concerned how they were going to take care of the elders in their community. Now, this is a non-native community. And I was kind of taken back, thinking, what do you mean you're not taking care of your elders? And so I had to pipe in at that time, and this was about a month ago. the chefs in our community came together and were working at the, or still are working at the kitchen in the Minneapolis American Indian Center. And at the time they were making 100 indigenous box lunches a day and delivering them to our elders. That number has currently gone up, and the population that they're serving is growing, including expectant mothers. So that's super proud. Another partner that I really have to highlight is the Dreamaweld Health. They are an indigenous farm in Hugo, Minnesota, which is about 40 minutes outside the city. And their farmers are hard at work. In fact, they just acquired 20 new acres. So they're really creating this produce, and they said the food is coming. We probably won't sell it all. So what they're going to do is they're creating sustainability boxes. And so it's essentially like a CSA box, but for free. And we will partner with them at our Four Sisters Farmers Market. And because we're Ojibwe, we had to add wild rice. That's the fourth sister. So we will hopefully have the sustainability boxes available for pickup at the Four Sisters Farmers Market. It is this kind of collaborative work. I could go on for 20 more minutes talking about how Minneapolis organizations are coming together to uplift, support, and encourage each other. So yeah, please contact me if you want to continue this conversation with any other questions about how Minneapolis is doing things. I'd be happy to.
And the contact information is in the chat. Yeah. And so, Robyn, Jackson, you're going to bring it home. What is the next step that Diné Cares is going to take in the next week or 2 weeks to get prepared for the 2020 elections? The Navajo vote is set to be one of the votes that could save democracy, because it is a swing vote in Arizona and will determine the fate of the presidential electoral votes as well as the Senate seat. So what's Diné Cares looking towards in the sense of what you're going to do to get the Navajo vote organized?
We have been discussing some creative non-in-person ways of getting information out to our people, and I think tapping into a lot of our grassroots Navajo networks, people who know how to organize, people who know one another. So, and we'll probably talk to Elizabeth about the phone tree.
The power of the cell phone is that you have a whole phone book in your jean pocket. So all of y'all who are on this call, if you want to start organizing, right now you have a whole list of people that you're in relationship with who could be brought together to do amazing things to support our community. So I want to thank everybody for joining the call. Thank you so much to the panelists. We really appreciate you telling your stories. We hope to have our next webinar in 2 weeks, where we'll be discussing the organizing to prevent the KXL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline, in a time of pandemic. So you will get information. If you received an email, you will receive another announcing the time and the panelists for that gathering. If you did not receive an email and you saw it on Facebook, you can go back to, you can go to our website, nativeorganizing.org, or to our Facebook page to find out the information for the next webinar, or any other information if you'd like to talk about organizing in your community. Thank you so much. So how we want to close is, so many of our communities like to do the handshake, to shake. So I'm asking everybody who's on the call to look into the camera, take your hand like you're going to shake, and we are going to have a virtual handshake to say goodbye. Yeah, the first virtual Indian handshake. All right. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. You don't need us anymore, right, Robert?
No, I think we're done. I thought maybe there might be people hanging on here for a little bit, but yeah. Yeah, no, that's all good. Thanks, Robyn. Everybody
Okay.
that was on. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
See y'all soon. Take care of yourself.
You too.
Are we debriefing? Or are you
I don't
the
know.
call?
Yeah, I'm the last one on here now.
So maybe we should hang up and go back to our staff.
Yeah,
Our staff
yeah.
line.
Just hang up so they can get back. Yeah, hang up so we can get back on this one. Okay.